Mas aí a pessoa fica pronunciando essa dimensão.
Lou!
Are you guys ready for this? Globe in hand. We are going to begin with the Catechism of Lore. All glory to the originators of truth and understanding. Praise to the innovators of steel and synth. Praise to the shapers of flesh, of bone, and of mind. Glory to those who resculpted the sustaining earth and the life-giving sun. Praise to the senders of signals, who even now whisper into machine ears and give life to the inanimate. Praise to those who travel to the stars and the realms beyond the stars. All glory to the originators of truth and understanding. The ninth world is a place of danger and isolation and of disparate people and culture. The order of truth has a goal to give understanding and knowledge to all of these people. And in order to do that, they needed a way to recognize each other and to say, I understand that you understand. And so they created a shibboleth. I'm going to let you read that because I know you know how to read. You know when teachers get up and you're like, you don't need to read that to me. So they created a shibboleth. And in the ninth world, the shibboleth is a word that the people use to say, I am one who understands, and I know that you are one who understands and seeks knowledge. And that word is Yedisi. So Yedisi, and welcome to the ninth world. I'm Shauna Germain. I'm the lead editor of Numenera. If you guys are not here for Numenera, you're in the wrong spot. And this is the book that we've been working on for the last year, which you guys will see a lot over the next 2 or 3 days. Can we have lights so that you guys can see us? That was a sniper range part. All right, this is Monty Cook, who you probably know. And next to Monty Cook is Charles Ryan, who is Monty Cook Games COO. And now I'm going to turn it over to Monty for all of this mushy stuff.
So, by a show of hands, how many of you guys were Kickstarter supporters? And you throw in pre-order people as well? All right. So, for a moment, I want to talk to all of you guys. Thank you so much. This is all because of you. We are here. We are able to create this product. We are able to create this game because of the support that we had through Kickstarter, through the people who supported us through the pre-order programs. That you made this possible, and you made this game that we had originally set with a budget of about $20,000, and you helped us create an entire product line of hardcover books with full-color interiors, and we pulled out all the stops. And so thank you so much for that, and I'm glad you're all here to share this with us today. Oh, and there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I know that there was some problems with we weren't able to ship out the Kickstarter hard copy books as quickly as we wanted to. I had wanted a lot of people to get them before Gen Con, and that didn't happen, and that's my fault. But we are going to do something on Saturday. We're going to create some book plates. So if you're a Kickstarter supporter or pre-order person and you know you've got a book coming and you wanted to get it signed at Gen Con and now you can't, come by the booth on Saturday or Sunday and we'll give you a book plate and I'll sign that and you can then put that in your book. That's what we wanted to do so that everyone got what they wanted. So.
So Charles is going to explain these wonderful little devices that you have in your hand that you have no idea what they're for.
Hi everybody, I'm Charles Ryan, I'm the CEO of Money Good Games. I came on board a few months ago as it became clear that for all of your support, that this was a bigger endeavor than perhaps we originally imagined it a year or so ago. And I'm only with the company for a few months, but I've been in the game industry for a while, so I've talked about cross paths with many of you in previous incarnations. So anyway, I just want to tell you a little bit about what you're holding in your hand, or what hopefully you picked up off your seat and are not sitting on.
Someone else's like diagonal.
Or yes, that's right. You're holding somebody else's. You're holding two of these. This is a little miniature cipher deck, and we thought it would be a nice gift for you guys. It's got some cards in it from the cipher deck that you can actually kind of use it as a cipher deck, but it also has a couple of cards that we leave here are not part of the cipher deck that you can purchase, and they won't be available anyplace else. So we've got that as well. And on top of that, this lovely cover card on the back has a little spot here. And if you bring it by our booth, we will give you $25 off your purchase as our thank you for coming to this launch event and being part of that. And we will stamp that when you do that. The card is designed to be something that you can keep and like, and the stamp will be really pretty on the Numenera, so which is the case that you'll stamp it rather than take it from you.
And do you guys want this because MCG is going to be around for a really long time, so you're not going to be able to say that you had these the first year that we gave them out. Okay, everybody's looking at me on this one with my turn. Monty and I are now going to talk a little bit about some stuff that you might already know, but which is the advent of Numenera, how it came to be, a little bit of the Kickstarter, what the game is, just some really quick rundown of the basics for people who have sort of not been aware of it. Which, is there anybody who's not been aware of it? Okay, well, okay, so we have a couple. Awesome. Yay to see.
So it was about 20 years ago that and actually I have a friend of mine where we're just kind of tooling around with a potential RPG rule system, and you know, we were playing around with this idea of these kind of point pools that you could manipulate, you know, as you played the game to kind of stress whether you wanted to, you know, put more effort into something or not. And it was one of those things that I just kind of put on the shelf and put in the back seat. I think soon after that, I probably got my job at TSR, and suddenly my mind was in Dungeons and Dragons and Planescape and things like that. So you know, I didn't think about this anymore. But it was around that time as well, but not in conjunction with that particular rule system, that I started thinking about this idea of, you know, it really all comes from that Arthur C. Clarke quote that you guys are probably all really tired of hearing. You know, but, you know, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I just kept thinking about that. And I kept thinking about, you know, kind of these standard D&D wizards, but using, you know, weird devices that they didn't really understand, right? And so they would combine, you know, pushing the right buttons and moving the right knobs with maybe some chants and some sprinkling of dust and, you know, things like that that made it seem more ritualized. And that idea just kind of stuck with me for a long time. But it wasn't until, you know, about a year and a half ago now, when I found myself at odd ends, you know, without gainful employment, that, you know, I was looking for a new project, basically, and I sort of had this vision, actually, of these two cloaked figures. And they were walking across some weird flat landscape. And sort of the camera of the vision pans back. And we see that, in fact, these two raggedy cloaked figures are walking upon what is like actually a metal surface. And we pan back further, and we see that they're actually walking across the surface of this enormous gear. And the thing about this particular scene in my head that struck me was that these two figures didn't really have any idea of what this thing was that they were walking upon, but yet it was not alien to them either. It was just a part of the landscape. It was just the way that they understood their world to be. And sort of with that idea, Numenera just kind of came crashing in, right? This idea that you've got people for whom this weird technology makes no sense, and yet it's a part of their world and always has been. And so they've just kind of come to grips with it to understand it.
And so I think that in the beginning we thought that this was just going to be a little tiny game. Monty and I were working on it together, the two of us, which we actually did for about 8 months before realizing that perhaps this was bigger than the two of us together. And when Monty brought me on as the editor, pretty early on in the thing, and we sort of started working on it on this road trip to California. And I can remember being in the car, Monty was driving, and we were saying, what should we call this guy that does everything? And finally, after throwing around terms for probably half an hour, we arrived at Jack of all trades. And so I have these visions of us on this road trip just sort of putting these brainstorming ideas together to come up with Glaive and Nano and talking about the sounds and types and the classes. And that's really kind of where we started, I think, was just this sort of bantering about, what is the language of this world and what do these people do and how do we create that from the ground up?
Yeah, it was very important to us to take the rule system and integrate it very, very closely with the world. So we wanted the type, the words that we used to create to call character type, we wanted those words to be words that were actually used in the world, right? So that people really talk about nanos, they really talk about glaives. These aren't just game terms. And and Shonda said, we kind of came up with all of this stuff on a road trip through Northern California. So so whenever someone talks about glaives and jacks and nanos, visions of redwoods that come into my head.
There's a reason that there's some forests in the ninth world. It's an homage. And so, so this is where you're supposed to talk about the smushy stuff about what it means to you. Did you already shake it?
It's a smushy as I'm
I was trying to get more. Just wait, give me a little time. So as I was saying, so we started out with this tiny game. And thank you, Kickstarter, right? I mean, what a great time for RPGs. Holy awesome. Right, so thank you, Kickstarter. We started out with this little tiny thing, and all of a sudden, as the Kickstarter was growing, we were like, let's add a bestiary, let's add a world book. And then all of a sudden, we had an entire product line, and just the two of us.
And Shonda makes a good point. I mean, it is important to remember that it was even just last year that people were saying, oh, role-playing games are dead, right? It's a dying thing. Nobody cares about role-playing games anymore, right? And then, so we launched Numenera with a very modest goal, right? Oh, well, people aren't that into role-playing games anymore. And we all together proved them wrong, right?
Term for that. So somebody come up with one. I'm afraid now. And so as we moved into this, especially starting to fulfill the Kickstarter, right? So Monty and I were doing the creative work and we were doing the business side and we had everything under control. And then Kickstarter fulfillment was around the corner and we were sort of going, oh, and enter Charles. And so Charles, will you talk a little bit about what you're doing now? So part of this transition is moving, and this is I think a very mental transition for Monty and I, moving from we are Numenera to we are Monty Creek Games. And so we were moving from building a game to building a company that's going to produce games for the long term, which is super, super exciting, especially now that we have someone on board to help us.
Well, yeah, I think that's really the main part of the narrative is the fact that a year ago this was a game that Monty and Shauna wanted to publish, and then it was clear that it was going to become, to some extent, a game line, and then it became clear that it was going to become a real game company with a future and more things, and going beyond just what was in the Kickstarter, even though that was already 6 or 8 products, and to more stuff for Numenera, in years to come, possibly other game lines, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think that's the fundamental level of it, and when you're operating at that level, that's not a 2-person operation. So when I came in, essentially my job is to be here and take these absolutely incredible game plots, incredible pieces of writing and artwork and layout and design and thought and concept and intellect, and then make sure that it gets turned into a product and that product can then be sold and be successful and support us and grow us going forward. So essentially my role up here at this table is that I handle everything that's not making a game, essentially. Or actually maybe not even creating a game, so the making the part I might be somewhat responsible for that as well.
So if you get your book soon, that's all Charles.
And unfortunately, if you don't,
That's
that is also pretty much all Charles.
Yeah, if when you got your PDF as a backer or whatever, that's probably because somewhere actually while on vacation, Charles was pushing a button somewhere.
How's your vacation, Charles?
Well, yeah. For better or worse, not as bad as some.
So we talked a little bit about what's kind of coming next on the business side from you.
Yeah, I think because of the fact that really so much came out through the Kickstarter process, we all, going through a slideshow of upcoming products. Well, you're going to do that actually, but you guys kind of know what's out there. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the end of the line. We are looking at 2014 and what that product line is going to be and how we're going to mesh that with the Exiles torment release. We're talking about what you're going to see in terms of licensed products. We've already seen, obviously, the Recursion will be here tomorrow, Thunderstone. There's other things in the works, translations. In addition to the book products, which we know about, for at least the next 6 or 8 months that we know about the Kickstarter titles. We're in the winter line, we guys are going to talk about that a little bit as well, so there's additional stuff in terms of that. So yeah, look for us to be making games.
And to help facilitate that.
Yeah, so in addition to knowing that we needed to bring on people who could, people like Charles Ryan, who could, really knew the business side of things, really could, help take a lot, not even just take that weight off of our shoulders, but bring whole new, exciting, interesting ideas on how to get products into retail and whatnot. We knew that our ambitions for putting out cool, amazing game products meant that we needed to also expand creatively as well. So, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to tell you a very short little story. When I was 14 years old, I was in shop class, although in my school we called it industrial arts. And there was this kid, and he was making this leather patch, like you do in shop class when you're 14 years old. And it had a crossed sword and axe on it. And so, I came up to him, and I was kind of a shy kid, so it actually took a lot out of me to come up to this strange kid. And he was kind of a strange kid. I said, "Do you play Dungeons and Dragons?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And we immediately started talking about D&D, and that talked like all that afternoon. I don't think we paid any more attention in shop class as we were trading, game stories and stuff, and talk after school. And the two of us became really, really close friends. And that friendship has maintained to today. And we are now no longer 14-year-olds, we are 45-year-olds. But he, like myself, went on to become a professional game designer. And in fact, he is he is definitely the one sort of role-playing game designer whose stuff I always make sure that I get a copy of, that I always hunt down. If his name is on it, I get it. And, because I know I'm going to like it. Because not only is he great, but I know that we're going to, our ideas are going to be very compatible. He's going to write about things that I am interested in. Because, we sort of developed our tastes for fantasy, what makes good games and stuff together, right? We've been doing it since we were 14 years old. And so when it came time to expand creatively with Montecook Games, there was really only one person that I wanted to turn to help us out. And so I would like to announce that Bruce Cordell is going to be joining us.
Wow, there's a lot of people here. Thank you very much. That was a great story. All I want to say to everyone is I am so excited. Words can actually hardly describe how excited I am to join my friends since we were 30 years ago, friends, 31 years, and recent friends. Charles I've known for like 12 years now, back when he was a D&D brand manager back at Wizards. So, back in R&D. Back in R&D, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, various incarnations. So, all I want to say is I'm really looking forward to jumping in and starting to work on the Numenera Launch. Ooh!
It's probably worth adding, actually, I meant to say, that, even though Bruce and I have been friends for 30-some years, we've never actually worked on a product together, as weird as that is. So this will be, long in coming, I guess.
Should be awesome.
Well, I started at TSR in 1994, and you started
In 95.
95.
Wow, I thought you started earlier.
Okay. So a long time.
It's like 6 or 7 years.
We are, yeah.
Notice they never put them together in those 6 or 7 years. Whoever's sitting here.
So I'm going to see this. So we're going to run briefly through what you can expect from MCG in the coming year and a half. And Monty's going to kind of run with that, and we have some awesome art to show you, and so that's what's next.
Right. Okay. So as you can see, we've got the core book available. It is on its way to people who pledged the Kickstarter and pre-ordered. It is at our booth 1201. We are very excited about it. It is the culmination of a lot of effort. 416 pages, full color, fold-out map. It'll do your dishes for you.
That was my vision.
In addition to that, also available right now, we've got the Player's Guide. And to be really clear, the Player's Guide is a subset of the material that you'll find in the core book. Basically, what we wanted to do was, we knew we were creating this mammoth book. And we knew that it was going to not only have rules, but it was also going to have setting material and GM advice. And we thought, not everybody sitting around the table needs to have this $60 book. So we wanted to create a smaller, more affordable book that, game masters could have their players get, and then, because it has everything that the player needs, right? It's got character creation stuff and a brief overview of the rules and the world and things like that. So that's the Player's Guide. You'll also see that at the booth, and available now, we've got the XP deck. You want to tell them a little bit about the XP deck real quick?
So one of the, are you guys familiar with the concept of XP in the game? For the most part? Okay, so one of the fun parts about the game is that when you do GM intrusions, you get to give your players 2 XP. So you give one player 2 XP. And they get one, and they get to give one to another player their choice. So, hey, you saved me. Hey, you found the ditch and I feel really bad for you, right? So you get to, and so the XP deck allows the GM to slide the cards across the table, or as Monty says, he does it this way that's so evil. It's just like, here's your GM intrusion, right? It's so scary. And so you can slide them across, and they come in sets of 1 XP or 4 XP, because you kind of turn in 4 XP at a time to get benefits and different skills and stuff.
Yeah, I just want to say, if you are interested in the XP deck, get it right away tomorrow.
Yeah, they're
because we are
almost
all sold out already. We have no idea. Several of these things are going to go so fast.
They will be available in the future, but if you want them here, they are almost done.
We've also got the Cypher deck, and that is also available right now, and at the booth, or actually,
Nope.
It is sold out.
So this is the last, you guys are getting the last of these, or the only of these. And so these are sort of samples of the Cypher deck, but they have ciphers that aren't actually in the deck. So when you get your Cypher deck, the sum of these are only available here now. So don't exchange them for a Cypher deck.
Yeah, and we'll never remake those. two unique cards in there, and we'll never remake them. So they are Gen Con 2013 exclusives.
So these guys are selling out here at the show. They obviously we didn't bring that up them, but these are print-on-demand cards from Drive Through RPG. So these products are live right now, live today on Drive Through RPG, and you can order them at $50, and you'll get exactly the same cards that you got here. You will not get some lesser quality than that.
Right. They do great quality cards. So then we're going to get into, oh, no one's going to be able to see that. It's good. Can we dim the lights?
We can try.
This
This is why you guys all came in the dark room, because once we got the lights dimmed, we couldn't figure out how to do it.
All right.
You guys don't have to move, we're good.
So this horrible, hideous thing is, in all of its glory, is the cover for an adventure that we have that's coming up called The Devil's Spine. And yeah, you can see that this poor guy is, well, things aren't too good for him. But The Devil's Spine is a 96-page full-color adventure. It's actually 3 linked adventures. We had, if you remember, in the Kickstarter, we actually talked about them as 3 separate adventures, but we decided that it was actually much better and more deluxe and a much better way to present them as one single thing. So if you backed the Kickstarter and selected even just one of the adventures, you're going to get the whole thing. The Devil's Spine is written by myself and Shauna, and there's 3 different adventures in it. And the adventures have some really cool locations.
Nobody's seen these yet. So
Yeah.
we're good.
All of this stuff is brand new. Yeah.
I haven't even seen it before.
Yeah, this is, just to give you a brief glimpse, this is an illustration of a tower that is controlled by an intelligent virus. And a virus that has become so tired of dealing with organic beings to infect that it started mass-producing its own beings to infect. Yes. There's all kinds of interesting locations in the Devil's Spine. We call this the whale ship for all the obvious reasons. And there are some very horrible things that you're going to have to deal with as foes. Shauna, what are these things called?
The progenitors.
Cool.
Anybody who's read Hidden Rush in the core book understands that I have a bit of a horror side, so be prepared.
And again, this is all pretty much. I don't know if these covers been shown anywhere.
Facebook.
They are in the deluxe core book as color plates, and other than that, I don't think so.
Okay, so this is actually the cover for the Ninth World Bestiary. Artwork by Kieran Yanner, who's our main artist. Does all of our covers and is amazing. Kieran was there at day 1, helping come up with the concepts for the look, and has been invaluable in helping us create the Ninth World. And so the bestiary will come out, I think, January? Yeah, okay, so we've got that scheduled for January. This is going to be a 160-page hardcover, full-color book. You know, we've got, this is going to be an amazing book because, you know, if you look at the Numenera core book and the creature section, you know, it's just amazing piece of art after amazing piece of art. Well, now imagine that expanded up to 160 pages, and that's what the bestiary is going to be.
And that will be the first project that Bruce is working with us on as well, so it's going to be very exciting for the 3 of us to come up with some fantastic features.
Yeah, Bruce, what's your favorite creature that you've worked on so far for the bestiary?
Oh, well, I've been doing some brainstorming, and I have quite a few actually. Let's see. One of them that I was just working on was called the Plasmar, and they're kind of this phenomena that forms after an energetic event like a thunderstorm or a volcanic blast or around an area rich in Numenera. And they kind of like in the real world how St. Elmo's fire forms, these kind of form, but in a humanoid shape, kind of, you know, space flat humanoids swaddled in a magnetic skin of luminous plasma. Although they think they come from the sun.
How about you, Shauna? Do you have any favorite bestiary ideas so far?
Probably, but I think we just finished writing the Double Spine, so I have to say that the pictures that I've been working on the Double Spine are probably the closest, and I don't want to talk about them because I don't want to give them away.
All right, fair enough. So we have. Oh, okay, sorry. So we have a little bit of preview art because we've got artists working on some creatures here that we can show you. This is by, help me.
This is by Guido.
Guido Quip?
I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
And this is a cool guy. This is actually a concept that the artist came up with. He thought it would be cool to have a creature that actually took and inhabited a piece of Numenera.
And that's actually something we do a lot. We say to our artists, give us 6 cool creatures that you're excited about. And the stuff that they come back with is just amazing. And this was one of them. And I don't think he actually intended originally for it to be sort of hermit crabbish. And we were like, oh, you know what? Let's make that. And so this will be a creature that crawls into some ancient piece of Numenera and creates a home in there.
Yeah, this is a piece by Bryn.
Bryn McLean?
Yeah, and yeah, so not even the rivers of the Ninth World are particularly safe places. This is another piece by Guido. Yeah. So just because it's Numenera, right? Not every creature in the bestiary is going to be an organic thing, and not everything is going to be fully understandable. And some things get really downright bizarre because we know that in the Ninth World, or rather in the prior worlds, the people, they started exploring other dimensions and probably opened some doors that they probably shouldn't have opened. And so there's all kinds of strange things that could possibly have come through. And then later next year, we have a book that we're calling the Sir Arthur's Guide, or Sir Arthur's Compendium, sorry, Sir Arthur's Compendium. And if you guys have looked at all of the core book or at the PDF, you may have noticed that there are, in the side column, kind of throughout, there are a few characters who give us quotes that start to, we have multiple quotes that start to repeat themselves. And one of them is this strange fellow named Sir Arthur. Now, of course, Sir Arthur is sort of a tribute to Arthur C. Clarke because we owe so much to Arthur C. Clarke's ideas. But Sir Arthur in the Ninth World is a kind of a little bit unstable, quote-unquote expert in the Numenera, who probably has experimented a little bit too much on himself, maybe. But anyway, this book is his guide to the Numenera. This is another cover by Kieran. And Sir Arthur's Guide is going to be filled with more ciphers, more artifacts, more oddities, all these things that you're going to want for your game. But it's going to have more than just that. What we want to do is we really want to explore some of the kind of amazing, super advanced technological ideas out there, and then talk about them directly from the point of view of the game, and how the game master can start to incorporate different kinds of nanotechnology or electromagnetic spectrum manipulation, all kinds of different things that we can get into. And so that's what Sir Arthur's Compendium is going to be like. There's a little bit of art that we can show you that's going to go into that book. This is a piece by Keith Thompson, right. He also did those really scary mermaid things that we showed before the progenitors.
There was a wonderful moment when one of our editors, Ray, who had been editing the words, saw the core book for the first time and saw the woman that is, what do we call her? I forgot. Describe. And sent me an email and said, that thing freaks me out. It was this wonderful moment because we hadn't seen the visuals that went along with the words.
Yeah, that piece is in the core book. It's actually one of my favorite pieces because it captures Numenera so well. It's this clearly mechanical looking woman, but she's using, just a quill pen, and she's describing something on paper. And I love the juxtaposition of, something that's so advanced is actually doing something that's so simple. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, we've got a sketch here from Lee Smith, just showing different kinds of ways that we can present information in Sir Arthur's guide. Because it's very much sort of a technical manual.
This is actually a piece that's going to be in the tech guide and in the adventure. And so basically we said to Lee, okay, well here's a list of all of these things that are available at this particular store. Pick a couple and see if and illustrate them and see how they come out. And he sent us these 3 sketches and said, I don't know, do any of these work? We were all sort of, we'll take them all.
And then lastly, probably later in the year, next year, no one's seen this one. This is probably one of my favorite pieces of Numenera art, period. And this is for the Ninth World Guidebook. And so, looking out that far, we just have basic concepts for this. But the Ninth World Guidebook is going to take the setting material that's in the core book and it's going to expand on it greatly. Both in, we're going to provide more places in the Steadfast and the Beyond, and locations and characters and whatnot. But we're also going to go beyond the Beyond, and we're going to include some places that are only hinted at in the core book right now. And we're also then going to expand it to cover the areas that will be explored in the Torment game. That's coming up. So I really love this piece, this weird crystalline citadel with these creatures that have jets mounted on the back of them, making them look like blimps, and I love it. And I think I put one piece. Oh yeah. So it's going to be full of interesting, weird, very Numenera locations. Oh yeah, and then I wanted to just include a number of images of the Reaper miniatures that we're going to have in the booth starting tomorrow. They'll be available for purchase.
We will have, hopefully, these exact miniatures that are painted as you see, to show people what they look like, and then they'll be available for purchase as well.
Oh, we have to go back here. Yeah, we're very excited. I've for a very long time, I wanted to work with Reaper. Those guys are good friends of mine, and finally we are able to put together something where we can all work in concert. I'm very, very happy with this. All right.
Okay.
And can we bring one?
And in addition to that, we should talk about some of the license stuff that we have coming up. Some of you guys already know about Torments. Very excited.
Torment's the big one.
Monty and I are both writing for that as well, so you'll see a little bit of us. And Monty's really helping them guide the world and the game, and they have an amazing. We went to a meeting like a month ago with their core writing team, and it was one of the most amazing creative meetings I have ever sat in. It was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, lead designer Colin McComb is here.
Colin!
Lead designer But also working on the game, we've got Chris Avalone, who was the lead designer of the original Planescape Torment game.
Patrick Rothfuss is writing.
Patrick Rothfuss is writing for the game. Yeah.
George.
Pretty crazy.
It's going to be great. Very excited to be a part of that and have that represent Numenera in the Ninth World. In addition to that, we have Numenera Thunderstone from AEG, which there are some copies available at the AEG booth here at the show, but the main release will be September or October. Yeah.
And that's, those games are coming from China, and they are, the ones that are here were very, very expensively airshipped, just as an examples here, so that's why Kickstarter back is not really seniors for a little while. It's not because we are holding them back, but they're on a ship, basically.
And it's really kind of, it's AEG's game, so
That's correct.
we We already talked about the Reaper miniatures.
And Christopher West, who is our photographer for this book, had ran a successful Kickstarter and made some beautiful maps. He has a booth here, I can't remember the number, but he has some really, really beautiful maps for sale as well.
Well,
Say again?
27.
542.
542-ish. I'm hoping for that.
Fat Dragon makes paper terrain, and they've developed a line of Numenera terrain. Again, Kickstarter backers are going to get that hopefully this week, maybe?
Maybe even tomorrow or next day.
Awesome, awesome. And am I forgetting something?
We are hoping, we sold out of dice, or we're about to sell out of dice.
There were only a few left in the booth.
We might be sold out of dice.
So we might be sold out of dice.
Really
The
good.
workshop, we hope to be working with them to bring dice to market as a product. The ones we brought here, we sort of know on the Kickstarter fulfillment, but we hope to make that a real thing. It'll be available all the time.
And then in were you gonna add something? I was going to say, in non-licensed products, to kind of go back to something else that we have coming up, one of our goals for the business is to make things that are available in print and PDF, and then make some things that are just available in PDF. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to turn some interesting, cool stuff around and offer it to you guys at a really reasonable price. And so we're going to be doing some more fiction, we anticipate, and we're also going to be doing something called Glimmers. Want to talk a little bit about the purpose of Glimmers?
Okay, so in the ninth world, there is there's the data sphere, and basically it's multiple civilizations of internet, right? That is just sort of surrounding the world, and there's still satellites up there projecting it and whatnot, but most people can't access it. But sometimes the data web malfunctions, and will transmit something just sort of directly into a ninth worlder's brain. And most of the time, that it makes no sense, right? It's just they just have sort of this vision that makes no sense. But sometimes it is at least comprehensible, and sometimes it's actually helpful. And the ninth worlders call these things glimmers, right? They don't fully understand where they come from, but somehow they just get these visions. And so what we've decided to do is create a line of products that will be ebook only, that we're calling Glimmers. And each one of these will be probably quite short, very inexpensive, and weird little things that you can add into your campaign. Maybe we'll do a very short adventure, we'll do a location, or sometimes it'll just be like some new idea or some new way of utilizing Numenera. Like, for example, probably one of the first ones that I'm really eager to work on is just going to be called Lovecraftian Numenera. And it's going to take some of the stuff from the Lovecraftian mythos and interject that, put sort of that level of horror and insanity and madness and incorporate that into Numenera.
So we're going to do a pretty big Q&A, because I'm sure you guys have a few questions. But before that, I want to talk about a couple resources. We're using the web a ton, as I'm sure you guys know. Part of that is Kickstarter. Part of that is the Monte Cristo Games Facebook page. Part of that is also a really fantastic fan site called Ninth World Hub. David Wilson Brown, who is recording, so he can't stand up, had created this and has some help, and it's a wonderful, wonderful site. It's full of information. They just, I don't know, it's just so wonderful, and people talking about ideas, and people telling us what we did wrong, which is also a very good thing sometimes. It's people telling us what they love and what they're going to run first. There's a lot of reviews of people who are running early games. And there's just, it's a good place to see the art first and all that kind of stuff. So if you're not on Ninth World Hub and you want to know what's happening, it's a great place.
It's a really wonderful community that's being built there of people who are big fans and really interested in throwing out new and creative ideas. There's already people posting, new material, their own ideas for ciphers and oddities, and it's really cool.
And it's really positive, and it's people who clearly want to have fun, right? Which is really, this is why we do this, is to have fun. So every time I go there and I see people having fun, it makes me so very happy. So Numenera.com, of course, is our big site for news and information. You can also always email, is it info at Monte Cristo Games? Info at Monte Cristo Games. Like if you have looked on the web and you can't find answers anywhere else, that's the place to go.
And if you were to do that right this minute, you would get an answer, because there is one other employee at Montgomery Games who is not here and is 800 miles away, so maybe she's sitting over at the keyboard answering you.
Her name is Tammy, and she is awesome.
She has saved our butts more times than I would like to actually honestly admit. And she's actually probably the one, if you're seeing social media happen this week, there's a good chance that it's her, because we are very busy and she's amazing. Do you guys have anything else before we start doing Q&A stuff? No? Okay. So the way we're going to do Q&A is you are going to need to ask your question very loudly so that everyone can hear it, but I will try to repeat it just so that we know. If you want to ask it to one specific person, that's totally good. If you want to ask it to all of us, we will just sort of choose someone who knows a little bit of something and ask them to answer. Thanks for coming, you guys, for heading out. Okay, yeah, in the back.
Hey there, I came this morning, I bought a bunch of books from Monty, he's nice enough to sign them for me, they're great. Did I make a mistake? I come in and I see a coupon, which is awesome. Did I make a mistake getting excited early this morning?
I did know that.
That's an excellent question. It's one that we mulled over. We kind of thought, well, we've got so much stuff, it really won't be a problem. And then before this thing happens, when we give these things out, some of our stuff is already sold out. So come by the booth tomorrow, and we'll make it right for you in some way or another.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Don't forget that the miniatures will be there tomorrow, and that'd be a great thing.
We also will have signed cover posters of the book cover that are signed by both Kieran and Monty tomorrow as well.
Yeah. And there will be a couple new things, but if you feel like you've already spent enough that you probably deserve this, then we'll make it right for you somehow.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I've read through the book, a lot of the book, I'm really excited to start playing. It's a really simple question. Do you want to tell us where your booth is? Because it's a big convention.
It's 1201, it's right at the front, center front.
This is why we have somebody doing marketing for us.
This is actually, let me expand on this a little bit, because this is a great question. This is a really good example of the spectrum or the gradient that the company kind of went up, because that booth was reserved a year ago, which we actually had on. And a year ago, I mean, who knew? This already just launched, and maybe it was just hitting 6 figures, maybe then, and people were saying, wow, this is looking pretty cool. But who knew? So we are swinging booth with Drive to RPG, and so we are a bit hard to find because we don't own the signage. We can't get big and loud, and we only have a certain amount of space. And we're kind of cramped in there doing the best we can. It will be different next year, but I don't blame you for not knowing where we are. Despite these signs we brought and stuff like that, we're kind of hard to find. But that's just a really great example of how things have changed over the course of the year.
I'll make Monty stand on the table tomorrow instead. I'm afraid to call it.
She won't actually do that.
I just wanted to say, don't forget about the app.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right, of course. Thank you, Colin. There is going to be a character creator app, and by is going to be, I mean, like, will be very, very soon. And this, I think, pretty much everyone, almost everyone, unless the Kickstarter is getting some version of the app. And this is going to be a very cool tool. We've been playing around with it for a while now. It guides you through character creation. It allows you to maintain your character while you're playing, so you can keep track of whether you're using like your mic pool or whatever. What else?
it's from 3 Pound Games, and it's part of the Kickstarter. And like I said, we will announce it as soon as we know for sure that it's available. We just haven't had a chance to check while we've been on the road. But if it's not out now, it will be out shortly.
It is not out now.
Oh, hi! Hello!
Hello, it's approved in the App Store, it's just not released, we're just waiting for your word.
I was afraid of that. We can get away with anything when it's out there. Go ahead.
Is it only available to iOS, or will it be available on other app stores?
It'll be available in Google Play as well, like probably tomorrow afternoon sometime.
As soon as we approved it. Does anybody else want to come on board with this?
There was special dice released for the Kickstarter for Numenera. Are you guys going to talk to Crit Success and maybe make Numenera rings? Because you're all
Oh,
wearing
yes,
it too.
Man, we would love that. I think that would be super cool.
It would be great. I'd love to have a new
Charles!
Get on that.
We'll go down.
You know, and that would actually be super cool because if you've seen the dice, you know that. So in Numenera, you get special things for 17, 18, 19, and 20. And you get an awful, awful thing if you roll a 1. We don't have a special signal for it. But we have a special symbol for the higher ones. Where's it? Are we doing on the dice, the 1? No. Right, okay. So we don't have... Anyway, that would be really cool. Go ahead.
In the core book, you set up a pretty obvious storyline with the crusade against the Gallians to the north. Are you planning on publishing more of that on future projects?
So in the Ninth World Guidebook, when we sort of expand our view on more of the continent, and I'll tell you right now, you can't tell it from the Ninth World map, but basically in the Ninth World, there is one big large supercontinent once again, and you know, like Pangea long ago. And so as we expand on that large supercontinent, we will expand northward into that land, and we will talk about the Crusade. We will talk about the Gaians and maybe why the Order of Truth is interested in declaring war on them. But really, you know, I don't see Numenera as the kind of game that, you know, so many settings talk about, you know, advancing the timeline and things like that. And I'm less interested in that kind of thing because I don't want to intrude on your campaign. So what we'll do is we'll provide you more information and more fodder for you to create adventures. But, you know, then you can decide what happens in that crusade. You know, maybe the player characters can stop the crusade from happening. Maybe they can join the crusade and win. Maybe they can decide that it's the Gaians who are going to win. You know, it'll be totally up to you. So there will be more information, but we won't dictate what happens.
I think if I can just step in, I don't want to speak for the creative team since they speak very well for themselves. But I think one of the key things about Numenera is we believe really strongly. Our rule zero isn't you can break the rules. Our rule zero is you make the rules. That, you know, and so if you come to us with a rules question, it is very likely that we will not answer it for you. Because we actually want you to make that decision. We want you to make it your world and your game. So that also means that when we talk about setting stuff, there's only some, we don't want to leave things undefined and then come back 2 years later and say, well, this is how it is. We want to leave things undefined and let you define them. And if we would be cheating you if we then said that, you know, 2 years later we came back, oh no, you are wrong. It turns out this is really how it is. So I would, when it comes to questions like this about the mysteries of the setting, I would expect a lot of mysteries to remain mysterious, and I would advise people to embrace the mystery, make it your own. Either leave that unanswered until you have to in your campaign, or come up with answers that you like and then be satisfied that those are the right answers.
And always be comfortable knowing that we're not going to come back and invalidate what you have already created for yourself.
To the best that we can. Obviously, if we ever produce another report or print, then it's possible we will invalidate something to come up with. But we will always be sensitive to the idea that we want you to make this your own.
I think a really good example of that is the world map. If you look at the world map, you'll notice that there are some symbols that are kind of grayed out. They're a little bit lighter than the symbols that we identify. These are places that we will never identify in a book. Right? So they are designated for you to create whatever you want to there, and they're all yours. We'll never come back and say, oh, this thing, now this is this. No, it's totally yours forever. You can do whatever you want with that. And it's really interesting because we had a lot of conversations with Christopher, because he's like, I want to fill in all the places and I want to make these real. And that's a great instinct, but it's not a Numenera instinct. Like, those are for you guys to do whatever you want with forever and ever. Go ahead.
I was going to ask now you got Bruce Costello on board. If you're like novels, I thought Numenera, but it sounds like maybe novels isn't the way you're going to go. You don't want to canonize them.
Well, it's possible I could write some novels in the future. We'll have to see. It's certainly in my bag of tricks, so it's something I'm very interested in doing as well.
But if we did do something like that, we would keep with that same philosophy. You know, they wouldn't necessarily be, you know, this is, you know, how the world was saved kind of novel. I think that's really not a Numenera kind of story, right? You know, something that sweeps across the whole world and saves, and there's some huge cataclysm that changes the whole setting. That's not really the way we see Numenera. Numenera is about kind of small, weird, interesting stories. And it wouldn't be so hard to create a novel, certainly short stories we've already done, right? That don't necessarily change things radically, but they change things for the lives of the characters. We really want to focus on characters and character stories, not things that shake up the world every 5
Also, just want to come back to the movie a couple of times today about fiction. We kind of thought, we did the Tales from the Night World, which is really cool. I hope that most people here have read it. If you haven't, go check it out. But one of the things, we did this as part of the Kickstarter, and we thought it would be kind of cool if people could get introductions to the flavor of the world and whatnot, not just for the Kickstarter guys, but for everybody who wanted to do it. So it went out, it became a live product on Drive RPG 6 weeks ago or so. And at the time, we kind of thought, some people will dig this and we'll sell it to you, and that'd be great. And we sold hundreds of copies. It was really exciting us. And this is the sold copies, not the copies from the pre-orders or the Kickstarter that people would download. Sold purchase copies, hundreds of copies. So I think that raised our eyebrows a little bit and made this fiction a little bit more likely.
Well, we have been talking novels, and that's been sort of one of those things that's like, yes, after we finish all the other things that we have done. But one of the things that I think was really clear with Tales from the Night World is that some people were, people who didn't like the stories because we didn't explain enough. Right, there were terms that we used that they didn't know, right, because they hadn't read the core book. And I think that that's sort of a sign of, that is one of the essences of Numenera, is that we trust you guys. You guys are smart, right? Our players are smart, our readers are smart, and we trust you guys to figure things out from context. And we're not going to ever give you all the answers. That's part of it being weird, that's part of it being your creation, and there is no right or wrong. So if you read a story and you read it one way, if you play a game and you play it one way, that's right. Right? If it works for you and you're having fun and the players enjoy it, you are right. And that will come through in our fiction as well, I think. I'm going to go over here.
Numenera became a success, as we've seen it on Kickstarter, and it turned out that Monco became Monco Games. For the future projects, do you pretend to launch other books using Kickstarter as a means to reach the people?
I think the Kickstarter is an amazing tool. And it is certainly going to be something that we will consider using again in the future. We don't have a campaign ready to launch tomorrow or anything like that, but it is certainly something that we've talked about because I think Kickstarter is great. One of the great things that people don't talk about Kickstarter a lot about, but one of the things that makes Kickstarter great is it is a way for a creative person to reach the fans of the thing that they're working on directly. And one of the things that's great about that is, if a Kickstarter doesn't fund, or if it doesn't do very well, then okay, this was an idea that people weren't interested in. It used to be before Kickstarter that you'd have an idea, and you'd have an idea for a book, and you sink a bunch of money into it, and you put it out, and then you would find out, oh, nobody wanted this. So it is like free market research, right, to begin with, right, to find out what people want. And, we were fortunate enough to discover last year that people seem to really like the idea of Numenera. And so we hope to find perhaps other ideas like that.
All right, somebody else, you guys take over the calling of people, because I feel like I have a hard time. All right.
All right.
John, go first.
So I read in an update that there was plans for tournament support and convention support in the future. Could you possibly expound upon what those plans are, or what you would like to do for them in the future?
The short answer is no. The longer answer is that someone talking about Nightfall Pub. So there are people on Nightfall Pub already, or even last week, who were talking about how they're going to run games at their local retailer, and not like, oh, I think it'd be a great idea to run a demo game at a new local retailer and scare up some players, but like, I have already scheduled this game. And we didn't do anything to promote that, so we were really, really pleased and excited about that, and we immediately said, oh my God, we can help these people. Too bad it's Kickstarter fulfillment time, and Gen Con, and product launch all at the same time. So, going back to the short answer, no, I can't talk about that right now, but it's mostly because of the fact that we haven't quite figured out what we're going to do with it. But we will do stuff, I absolutely guaranteed, because I mean, you can't come out of a Kickstarter of this scale without having a profound and humbling realization of exactly how important the community is to making the product grow. So, you better believe we'll do we'll try to do some cool stuff.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that, that we can do, providing regenerated characters, we can, scenarios, signage. We have a lot of ideas kicking around, but they're still coming together because this is all happening very quickly.
Before you do that, I'll do just another example of how things change so quickly. If you have a copy of the book and you hold it up right now, you'll notice a logo on the back of it from Cook Games, and then you'll notice there's a logo up here. When we had the logo was commissioned last autumn, and it was very pretty, but it wasn't quite what we needed when we realized that this was going to be a bigger deal than it was. And so when the book went to press, this logo was in the sketch phase. The sketches were approved. We were waiting for the artists to turn over final stuff, but we just couldn't wait. Like that was going to be another 4 days. We can't wait 4 more days to get the book to press. So the book went with its old logo. This has been just an astoundingly fast process. The shape of this company and the shape of what we're doing is different every single week for the past couple of months. So things will get a little bit more stable, and then we'll be able to do things that seem so basic, like helping out people at conventions and stuff like that. We don't have to.
For example, we now have increased our staff by 20%. First job is to point at you. I'm going to point at the gentleman I pointed at before.
Given how fast the Kickstarter grew and passed and how it just exploded, you kind of saw from our point of view, but from your point of view, like I think it passed the $20,000 mark in the first day or two. What was that like on your end, I guess? I mean, you kind of touched on it, it grew much bigger than the initial project, but putting it up, making it live, oh, geez, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get an idea from your point of view of what it all looked like.
It looks pretty cool.
We actually were just flipping through some photos and found a photo of Monty and I having margaritas at the very moment that the Kickstarter went live on August 9th of last year. And this happened to be on August 9th of this year. That was a year ago. And we just had this really weird trip. But we thought we were done. The Kickstarter's launched. We're done, margaritas.
I mean, to be really honest and not flippant, and actually Shauna and I are giving a panel tomorrow about running Kickstarters. And, I actually, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I learned a lot about running Kickstarters by watching other Kickstarters. I spent like the first, I would say like the 3 months before Numenera launched, just watching what other people did, what seemed to work, what didn't seem to work. And, I don't think it'll come as a surprise to many people that it was the Reaper Kickstarter that really taught me how to do a Kickstarter, right? And, so one of the things that I still believe to be true is, set your initial goal as low as you possibly can get away with, without hurting yourself, and then go from there with stretch goals. And so, to be really honest, I thought that we would go higher than $20,000. I did not think that we would get to $500,000. But, so somewhere maybe in there. In my wildest dreams, quite honestly, just to be really frank, my wildest dreams I was hoping for maybe possibly we'll get to $100,000. That was fingers crossed, if all goes well, we'll get that high.
And then he said, let's make a movie.
Which we will do. But I'll be honest about that too. It's just something that we just had to put on the back burner and not even really think about until the book came out and you guys had core books in your hands. So but we are still planning on putting together a short Numenera film. I'm exploring lots of different options.
But many of you guys are really good at making films.
Talk to the Zoe folks in Seattle.
Well, yeah, good friends with a lot of them, so that's definitely a possibility.
Let's see here. Right down here.
All right. When choosing and developing the artistic vision for Numenera, what were your goals? Like, what did you want to evoke with the art style? And just kind of tell us about what you wanted to do with the art. What were your inspirations?
Well, so I spent a lot of time looking at RPG art, and what I saw was lots of really great characters, and I love that, right? But as someone who runs, I'm normally the game master. What I saw was if there was a lack of something, it was a lack of amazing landscapes. And Numenera seemed to be this place where there were just sort of these amazing, evocative, beautiful, but weird places, right? With floating things and, buildings sort of embedded in the landscape. And so when I went to Kieran, who does mostly characters, and I said to him that I wanted all these landscapes, he's like, well, literally, he said, I'm not very good at landscapes. And then, delivered to us the artwork that you've seen, on Numenera.com in the core book, these amazing, beautiful landscapes. What we did was we looked a lot at Mobius, the French artist, but also there were two other French artists who were kind of associated with him, whose names are just blown out of my head. But they did a lot of work in like metal hurlant and really old heavy metal, and they just captured this feeling of weird and time. There's a lot of really wonderful pieces by Mobius that just show, where you look at the background and there's like these cliff faces, right? But then you look a little bit closer and you see that actually no, it's a landscape that has sort of eroded into a cliff face. And it just gives this wonderful feeling of time. And that's really what we wanted to evoke. Because we're talking about 1 billion years in the future, right? We're talking about a time period that really, let's be honest, is sort of incomprehensible to us as humans right now. And so we just wanted to try to take a stab at maybe kind of evoking that kind of deep time. And so that was a lot of the inspiration. I'm kind of passionate about the art, so I can go on and on. Alright, how about this guy over here in the Captain America shirt?
I kind of want to follow up from the previous question. I really like your philosophy about not advancing the world story, but sort of keeping that initial place that we can then build on and create our own stories out of. But I think it also does restrict a lot of what you can do for putting out future products, right? Because you can't advance, you can't build into the areas that you said you're not going to build into. So what do you do to keep advancing the product or bringing out new products when you've eliminated that possibility as an area to go?
Well, one of the great things about the Ninth World that makes it so well suited to RPG adventuring and exactly what you're talking about is the fact that the world is so isolated. And the people, are living in a small town and, beside a really big hill, and they literally might not know everything that's going on the other side of that really big hill because it's a dangerous place. Nobody has wandered over there, or the people who have haven't come back. And so, there is nothing, even though we might put a town on the map and we say, okay, this town is here, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a town just downriver from there. The map is not meant to be complete in any way, shape, or form. And so there are plenty of ways for us to grow in that way if we want to. The Devil's Spine adventure, for example, places a new location in there's a region called the Cloud Crystal Skyfields. place is a new location there called Borough Town, which is this really weird place sort of built into the side of this scaffolding. That philosophy, that approach to world design allows us to kind of be able to stick on wherever we want. But then, of course, it's a huge world, right? The map that you have, it encompasses an area of about the 48 states-ish in landmass. Well, and there's a lot more world out there to explore.
I'm going to go on this side. Gentleman in the brown shirt here.
Just curiosity, any of the eight worlds that are part of Ninth World, anytime we talk about doing anything with those, or at least a little bit of adventures, background, kind of anything?
Nope. I mean, part of, and this goes again with the weird, like, that, the question, it goes with the weird, but it goes with the philosophy of both the game and the people who live in the Ninth World, which is, they aren't excavating the Numenera to see what happened. They're excavating the Numenera to see how they can use it, right? And so really what we're teaching players is to look forward, to look to the now, and not to look backward in that kind of way. And so I think it's really important that we actually aren't going to talk about it at all. If it's important to you in your campaign, make up whatever you want, right? So that's part of that too. If you want to make up a Ninth World, go for it. If you want to talk about how they move the sun so that the Earth is still inhabitable, go for it. I mean, it's all up to you, but we will never answer any of those questions.
It's just an attempt to, if you look at the core book, you know that we're stressing the weird, right? And things stop being weird once you concretely understand them. So we're just going to keep a lot of that stuff mysterious so that we can keep producing weird and cool adventures.
And back with the phone camera.
So, what I want to know is what mechanic or group of mechanics do you feel best promote the ideals of Numenera in play, and how do they do that?
As someone who's started practice GMing Numenera recently, I think that one of the best mechanics for that is the GM intrusion. We're talking about a very story-rich world here and weird things happening, and the GM intrusion mechanic, can't be overused, otherwise it will not be special anymore. But every so often, you use the GM intrusion mechanic, everyone a nice XP, a card, and want to get away. And suddenly, their cipher works in some terribly devastating fashion that they weren't actually expecting, or whatever weird thing you want to have happen, or some other story goal that you actually have in mind.
Yeah, I was talking to someone in the booth today about GM intrusions, and I hope that this is clear in the core book, but just in case it's not, I just want to reiterate that the GM intrusion is not meant to be, this is a way for me to punish my players. This is a way for me to make the story more interesting, right? This is the way, as the game master, for me to determine, when more abhumans suddenly show up, or whether or not the floor gives, the rickety old floor that they're walking across, whether that gives way or not. That's what the GM intrusion is for. Every time a GM uses GM intrusion, the last thing that they should, after they've described what happens, the last thing they should say is, now what do you do? Right? Because that's what the GM intrusion is all about. Things just got more interesting, now what do you do?
Every conversation about an instance of GM intrusion it should never be that time. Remember that time Monty did that thing to me? Scared to death. It should always be, do you remember that time that really cool thing happened? That's sort of the idea. It's going to create those moments that make the memory of the game so cool.
All the way against the wall.
With the sun being 1 billion years in the future, you made a very interesting design choice in making the culture very human-centric. I think the non-human characters are actually in the optional rule chapter, if I recall correctly.
Right.
That's an interesting design choice. Why did you choose to do that instead of maybe something a little bit more over the top and very, very weird?
Well, I think that's almost a question that answers itself. Because I think that in order, when you write horror, you need to establish sort of the normal so that you can then contrast and make something scary. I think the weird works the same way. In order for something to truly be weird, you have to have something normal to play upon. And so the player characters, for the most part, start out, as humans, and probably, I mean, there are certainly exceptions, right? There are foci that you can choose that make your character pretty weird. But if you want to play a pretty normal character, you can in Numenera, and then have the weird be contrasted to them against that normal. But I want to play up and mention the fact that it is a part of the mystery of the setting in toto that there are even humans there, right? That it is a billion years in the future, and there are humans. And it becomes even more of a mystery when we know that at least one, if not more, of the prior worlds were not human. So that doesn't mean that the humans of the ninth world, have always been there, right? It doesn't mean that they are us, right? But where did they come from, and what is their origin? That, in fact, is a big part of Numenera and what's going on there. One of my favorite little tidbits, I'm sorry, I'm going on a blank here, but one of my favorite little tidbits in the book is that there is, in fact, one type of creature that has been on Earth for 1 billion years, or actually far, far longer, because they've already been here a very long time. And those are octopi. And in the ninth world, octopi, and maybe in our world, octopi, are very intelligent. And so when a human in the ninth world was actually, through using Numenera, was actually able to communicate with an octopi, when they went down under the water, the octopi's only response was, "Oh, you're back."
This is sort of a tangent off of that, but there are a lot of sort of disparity things like that hidden in the core book. And some of them relate to things like that, where if you're reading closely, you will discover little hints about the world and what has sustained and what hasn't sustained. But there are also lots of Easter eggs, and Ninth World Hub is a great place to start picking up on these, of things that Monty and I love that are kind of hidden in the text. And some of them are pretty obvious, and some of them are very, very hidden. And I think we promised a gift to the first person who could figure out either the major Easter egg that we did for Arrested Development, or First and Last Man, the book by
Stapleton.
And so far no one's figured it out, so it's still open. We still have something to give away to whoever on Ninth World Hub figures that out.
Somebody found the X-Men reference right away.
Yeah, that was pretty easy.
Yes, you. So this isn't a Numenera question, but since Bruce and Monty, you've been friends for so long, Bruce, do you have a good, quick Monty story?
No, he doesn't. My Monty story usually was the kid came up to me and said, "Do you play D&D?" Very, very kid. Let's see, going back that far, one thing that Monty and I, or one or both of us, almost didn't make it here because back in high school we did this really stupid thing called car surfing. And it's about as stupid as you can imagine. No, we made it.
I think you just got off lucky.
Green shirt.
NINTHWORLDHUB. Sorry.
So in the fan-created content, I believe, I don't know who to give credit to, but calculating was amazing as an additive. Are you going to incorporate stuff like that into the app for use as part of, or having people submit their own adjectives and verbs, so that you can actually use them with your character?
We don't have plans for that right now, but I can see it as a possibility. You know, it would be easy. It would not easy, but it wouldn't be too hard to incorporate new material like that into the app.
In the core book, I understand that I haven't had a chance to read it. I've been on flights and didn't get my internet until like this morning. As I understand it, there's 3 character types at the moment: the nano, the champ, and the clay.
That's right.
Are there plans to have other types?
At this time, I don't think we're going to expand on character types, but I think there's lots of room for new descriptors and new foci. So I think that if we expand in the rules in that way, that's probably the direction we're going, at least at first.
Monty and I were actually just joking, because we're both pretty serious introverts, and we were talking about, like, a weird thing is sometimes they come to Gen Con being introverts, and so we were saying that we were going to come up with one that's, I'm an introverted blank who blanks. And the only way that you can get a bonus roll to your health is if you go off by yourself. And so we thought there has to be some other gamers who are introverts. So we went through that.
So I guess, Shana and Monty, the literary influences that kind of each of you brought to the Numenera?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a huge reader, and I read really widely. And so, definitely, we were talking about Punk 6, also books by Camilo Diaz, who's written a couple of short collections, and at least one novel in two. And is a Numenera backer, which just sort of gives me the chills. And definitely, I read a lot of short fiction, and I would say a lot of our influences have come from comics. Right now, I'm reading Morning Glories, Lock and Key. What's the one? Is it One Man?
I'm sorry.
Why the Last Man? So I would say that my influences are just sort of chosen from all of them. We just also watched Elysium as part of our getting prepared for Gen Con. And I discovered that everything I read and I watch now, I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that. Oh, look at that first view, I'm going to steal that. And so right now my influences, I'm just sort of like a sponge and drawing everything, which isn't very specific. I'm sorry that I don't know more specific, but I definitely found that.
Well, I just thought as a GM to help with, where you kind of got it from and where we could pull references.
Well, there's a whole reference list in the back of the core book, and we will probably do that for every book we come out with, because as we continue to grow and read new things and find new things, there will be more and more things that influence us. And Monty, you probably have a more specific list.
Well, so first and foremost, I think probably the biggest literary reference is Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. It has very much the Numenera kind of ideal to it, which is, you think that when you start reading it, you think you're reading a fantasy, but then you realize, no, this is actually really, really far in the future, and that stuff that I thought was magic is actually technology. It was hugely influential on me. And in fact, the friend of mine, the mutual friend of ours, actually, that turned me onto those books back when we were 14, the book is dedicated to him. He passed away earlier this year. But beyond that, Jack Vance, the dying Earth cycle, obviously, for all the obvious reasons, it was very influential. Michael Moorcock, particularly, his End of Time stuff, and Hawk Moon, and there's this really cool comic called Prophet that has been out for a little while, and it's just weird far future stuff, and I don't even really know what's going on in it. But I really it did. When I started reading it, I was like, oh my god, this is practically the Numenera comic right there. Nausicaa was a huge influence. Nausicaa is probably my favorite anime.
I'm a pretty big Miyazaki fan. I picked out that Nausicaa stuff in there. And it got me thinking, why could you just keep batches and just run one in that role?
I think that'd be easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's a lot. And, and actually, there's a lot of great nonfiction stuff out there. if you look for it, that talks about just what will the Earth be like in a billion years? What is possible with technology if we just advance it to at least as far as we understand today, its farthest reaches. And we reference some of that stuff in the back of the book too. It's great resources.
In terms of what underlays your question about influences that might be of value to you, I think that just very recently there was somebody on the Ninth World Battle who posted a whole string of links of some really cool pieces of imagery that I thought were sort of dead on for what the game is all about.
Yeah, Ninth World Hub, it's a great resource.
You mentioned earlier about doing glimmers based off of kind of Lovecraftian stories, and I've been rereading the Book of the New Sun series by Gene Wolfe, partly because of Numenera. Is there any chance you could pull characters, I don't know, there'd be trademark concerns, but from some of these books, and maybe do glimmers off of those too?
Well, Gene Wolfe's stuff is his. So, we probably wouldn't do something like that. Oh, the Lovecraft stuff is, a lot of it is actually public domain. So, if you're looking for Numenera deep ones or Shoggoths, those might very well be coming.
Just while you were talking about could you make a 13-page to have 13 icons of Numenera?
We haven't really talked about doing crossovers with other games and things like that, but it's certainly a possibility. That sounds a little more ambitious than a Glimmer, but
All the way to the end.
So you talked a little bit about expanding the classes or expanding foci and things like that. What about expanding tiers? Could you discuss whether or not you plan on doing that, or for groups who play long enough to max out at the 6th tier, what you might do after that?
Well, so the thing is that you can still keep expanding beyond 6th tier, as far as getting more skills and increasing things like that. There just aren't more tier abilities built into the foci and the types. It's possible. It's probably something that we would do a long way down the line, because I think that there's a lot of play just in the 6 tiers, because there's 4 steps between every tier. So really, it's not like if we're gonna think of that as levels. It's more like having 24 levels instead of 6.
The nice thing too is that it's not scalable in a traditional sense, right? It's not like, oh, I hit 6th level, now I can fight this level 6 monsters, right? It doesn't, those things don't, it doesn't work like that in this game, right? And so you can be any level and fight any creature, and depending on how much effort you have and how much your other skills lay out, it's really malleable, and so it isn't like, oh, if I hit this extra level, I can now do this thing that I couldn't do other than just the basic skill set. So it's kind of it's sort of different in that way. I think it's just a little bit of getting used to in terms of that the tiers aren't the way that, they don't work the way that traditional levels work in that sense.
Riffing on this theme of mystery and weirdness, and you're not going to answer all of our questions, there are, I imagine there might be some people in the audience who, like me, are much more likely to play than run a game. And I wonder if there is any reason, in the spirit of preserving the mystery, why it would be to our advantage not to read the core book, but only to read the player's guide book, so as to withhold information on this.
I think yes. If you read the entire core book and you played the game, it's not gonna ruin everything for you. But as a player, it might be even more interesting. Yeah. If you don't.
Right, I agree. Right, and there are some adventures in the back that you definitely don't want to read, obviously. But I do think one of the things that we do that I think is really fun for game masters is we have the weird and the hearsay, and this is for each area. Right? And these are basically just little glimpses of something that's really bizarre that's happening. We actually just started a Twitter called Weird of Numenera. And so every, we'll sort of daily, but we may not make it every day. But generally, we're going to just give you something weird and funky. As you follow that, you'll get just this little, like, beep, here's this bizarre thing that's happening. And so to keep that mystery, I would say you don't want to delve too deep into that. But if you're the kind of player who can read the whole core book and then still feel a sense of mystery, I think it's a really cool, interesting thing to read. So it really depends on you and what your interests are and how much you want to know before you walk into a game.
And really, so much of everything is left up to the game master. That reading the core book, it isn't like reading the teacher's edition answers, right? It's more like just reading the questions.
It's also, I think, it's like one of those things you go on the internet where like you start off with a person and you just keep zooming in and it gets down to the cellular level, and it gets down to the molecular level, and it gets down to the subatomic level, and it gets down to the string level. I mean, it just keeps, no matter what level you're at, it just seems like there's just as much to go. And the same when you zoom out. And I think it's the same way. You could learn more, and you could learn more perhaps than maybe your character would be exposed to in that world, but nevertheless, at whatever level you look at it, there is the same amount of mystery still in front of you.
This is actually, I'm going to jump in just because this is the one question I've heard that I think it's better to have somebody that isn't sitting up there answer. They know all that. They're the only people who really have a lot of ideas already developed for some of those answers. Like what's actually out there. As somebody who has read through the core book already and started to do a little GMing as well, I will tell you that I don't think it ruins anything. They did a great job of packing a ton of detail, but that's very broadly dispersed. So it gives you a lot of hooks. Like it's really just a book full of 10,000 fascinating hooks. And so it gives you a lot of great ideas. I don't think it's players not going to read. Great.
I was actually going to say.
I
was going to say the exact same thing actually, because I've read through the whole book, but I've been playing the game with Monty, and I actually just find that it, in a way, increases my anticipation about the sorts of things that are going to happen. Now, maybe don't read all the monsters. Otherwise, and they don't.
Do you plan on having Hero Lab support?
We were talking about it.
Cool.
Not me in the show.
I was wondering, with the strange landscapes and vistas and the odd creatures and this focus on the weird, was there ever an idea that was too weird to be included in the book? That once you got it on paper, you said, no, we can't do that?
No. The real answer, I think, is that there isn't anything that's too weird. I haven't come up with anything yet that's too weird. But there are things that I don't think fit Numenera. And, we play around a lot with the whole, is it magic, is it technology kind of thing, which, really is what's going on kind of on the level of the people who live in the world, and whether they're one who understands or one who doesn't, right? But there are things like that we see, in other aspects of fantasy or myth or whatever, that they're cool ideas, but you can't really explain them very easily as being true Numenera. Just grab an example at random. Anything that would be like sympathetic magic, right? That's very fantasy. It's very magical, but it isn't very Numenera because it doesn't really fit the sort of criteria of something that is also science or also potentially science.
Right. We had an early, I think it was I can't remember the program descriptor of someone who could raise the dead or talk with the dead.
There used to be a foci called Consorts with the Dead.
Consorts with the Dead. And really early on we had a conversation about whether or not that was appropriate for Numenera. Because our theory was, I think at the time we were watching Fringe, and we were like, well, we could bring somebody back to life with, electronics, sticking it in their brain, and do all these things, we could get them back for a couple of minutes. But could we really raise the dead? Could we really converse with the dead? And so we had a lot of questions about whether or not that fit Numenera. So it wasn't that it was too weird, it was that we didn't yet know what kind of science would allow that to happen, right? Because while it can seem like magic, we felt that we needed to understand the science behind it. So we pulled that out early, and we might see it again later, depending on what we decide to do.
All my zombies.
this in here? Yeah, you don't have to ask. Yeah, but it's really weird. Okay, right? And then we have a lot of conversations like that. And so, well, I don't, and the point isn't to be weird for weird's sake, right? So it's a very careful combination of weird that fits the world and that raises questions about the world, but questions that could be answered if you wanted to answer them, right? So that it's really about creating weird that fits really well into the world and into the history of it and into the way that people use it today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually one of my favorite things about the setting is this idea that we can put anything that we want that is just the weirdest idea that we can come up with, but on some level there is an explanation for that. And and maybe that's discoverable, maybe it's not, right? But there is an explanation for it. And that, I don't know why, but I find that really intriguing and really cool.
It allows us to read about science too. I mean, we have this creature that is able to regenerate part of itself, right? And so we got to do all this. At first I was like, yeah, it just regrows it. And she was like, do you know the science behind that? I was like, no, but wouldn't it be cool? And so then we had to go to figure out the science and really figure out, could that happen and how long would it take and what would it be made of? And so it actually allows us to kind of really get into the science of it, even though it's not on the page, right? So for us, at least for me as a creator, I find it really exciting that I can say, here's this cool thing that happens, and I know in my own brain that it happens for a reason, that it's absolutely plausible.
But at the same time, I mean, it's really easy to run Numenera and not know or care anything about science, right? I mean, it just
we do it all for you.
Right, throw some weird stuff in there, and it will still fit in.
Well, if nothing else, there's just a whole back to other dimensions that have cracked or whatnot.
Right.
There are things that can happen in this universe that don't really have anything to do with the laws of a lot of the sciences that we understand.
Right, and that's important, right? Because it isn't science as we know it now. It's science a billion years from now, right? So who knows what could have happened between now and then that they defy the laws of gravity, they realize that it's not actually a law after all, right? I mean, there's so much science that could have happened that we can't even fathom, that it actually gives you a ton of flexibility. And so one of the things that we keep thinking about is not what is happening in science now, but what are they projecting will happen in science in the future, and how can we utilize that? Which is actually, I think, even more fun, because it gives you a lot more variety. The Hyperloop, you mind?
What?
What's the secret behind the accent in there over the E?
It's pretty. Karen is a fantastic designer. Yeah, it's really just a cool artistic element. Because you'll notice that it doesn't appear in the regular. We have about 10 minutes. If anybody's got any more questions. Anybody?
Let's go over here.
I just want to say I'm kind of new to this game. My husband's been gaming for a very long time. And I started a couple years ago to just have fun. And I just want to tell you congratulations. I think it's really cool what you guys do. So that's
Thank you.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll give you a really bad one. No, it's kind of clear. You look at the philosophy, or you look at like the thematic focus of Numenera. It's a lot about philosophy and kind of history and science and subjects like that. To what extent, when you were designing the game, did you decide that you want to approach or avoid approaching maybe more controversial subjects? Violence, religion, politics, sex, that kind of stuff. How much does that go into the game? How much do you want to say we don't want to focus on that? What's your approach to that?
So we have 10 minutes left? The answer generally is yes. We think about all of those things. So, for example, there was somebody who said, I don't remember where it was, but there was somebody who said, about Numenera, I see all these white faces in Numenera. It's yet another game with full white faces. And, with the exception of the one albino that is illustrated, there actually aren't any. And I know what they actually mean is Caucasians, but there are no Caucasian people
in Numenera. If you look at the art, what we've actually done is create a world where the races that we know today, because it's a billion years in the future, and these are not an extension of the races of today, they have what's the a synthesis, a blended appearance, right? And so we can the artists that we worked with all got a description and a file of different references to use. And this was important to us because we actually didn't want to create a book that was just full of Caucasian people. We didn't want to create something that was, it just looks like today, transplanted a billion years in the future. Even humans are different a billion years in the future. And so that was something that we carefully thought about and carefully constructed. But some of the art, I will admit, throws you because one of the things that we have a lot of in Numenera is a lot of like hair dyes and body painting and things like that. So it does confuse the issue. But basically, humans in the ninth world are just all humans and don't distinguish by race, don't discriminate by race. That doesn't mean that they're all great people because they make up they're classist as hell in the ninth world. We've got nobles and slaves and it's not like everybody treats each other very well. But again, that is part of the politics, right, that we want to talk about. We don't have, there's no extension of modern Earth politics into Numenera, but there is still the thought patterns behind those kinds of things. So we have, in most of, especially the steadfast, right, a very rigid class structure that actually sort of resembles Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian kind of noble. There's not a strong middle class, right? It's basically upper class, lower class, and slaves. So these are kinds of things that we wanted to create. We wanted to create a game where sex happened, which is something that a lot of role-playing games actually try to avoid. And we said let's actually make a game where we recognize that people actually have sex. And we have same-sex couples and transgender characters, and it is not just modern-day Earth, planted into a different setting, right? We addressed all these things very, very intentionally.
Right, I would say too that part of building this world and building a game that plays out that world is we wanted to include the things that humans include in their lives, right? So we wanted to include them to the degree that they need to be included. And that doesn't mean, like Monty was saying, that it's all good, right? Some of the sex in our book is bad, right? Because that's what, and I don't mean like, oh, I had bad sex. I mean like, it's and we really wanted that. But we also wanted game masters to decide whether or not that was part of their game, right? So sex is part of the world. It doesn't have to be part of the game. Violence is part of the world. It kind of has to be part of you, but not really. I mean, Numenera is built so you don't actually have to combat, right? You can just talk your way out of anything. You can just be this really smart, witty guy who, And so I think that, that we created a world that has all of these elements. Again, so you can pick and choose what your game looks like. That was really important to us to be very realistic in the creation of the culture and the ideologies. And, somebody was saying recently, like, why did you create a world that don't have any gods? And in truth, like, there are gods all over the place, but because it's such an isolated world, it really is a god that there are gods that are in small communities that are created from the things that they see every day, right? And so whether your characters and your players choose to believe in those specific gods or not, it's up to them again, right? So I think we worked really hard to create a sense of all of these things that you as the game master, you as the player can then say, that doesn't interest me, I don't want that in my game, or that does interest me, I do. But it's all kind of in there so that, again, you get to choose. That was really important to us.
I have a question more a comment. And I said this to Sean this morning in the booth, I didn't get a chance to say it on or anything, but as someone who runs the game 90% of the time for the group, Numenera has done something none of the other games have done. They've untethered me from the table. A lot of times you got your DM screen, you got all these things that kind of keep you to the spot, keep you speaking and storytelling from a single location. Numenera doesn't require any of that. I find that you can get up and I'm over here at the table, I'm over here at the table. There's no reason to be sitting here. You can just do it. They're rolling, you don't have to roll any dice. All you have to do is figure out the difficulty, and you just move on with the story. And you can just totally be amorphous around the whole table.
I find the same thing. When I run Numenera games, I'm often walking around or standing up, or because it allows me to be bigger and expressive rather than sort of hunched over the table.
Nerve-wracking. Remind him.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good comment. Yeah.
We have one more question, probably.
Okay.
Good question.
Do you plan on playing other campaigns that you've already started, or do you think you are probably going to fully switch over to Numenera?
You mean just for fun?
Yeah.
Well, all of my games currently are Numenera games, and that probably will be true in the future. That's kind of the way I work. When I was working on a lot of D&D and D20 stuff, I was running a lot of D&D and D20 games because I pull stuff out of the games that I create for fun and put them into products because they're sort of come pre-play tested. So that's kind of how I work. But I'm a big fan. I'm still a big fan of D&D, Call of Cthulhu. I'm a big fan of a lot of games.
I'm in a trail campaign right now. We're not going to stop it just because